Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to review And Spoil Together, a feature film debut from Michael Shanks, which premiered at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival. The film stars real-life married couple Alison Brie and Dave Franco. So let's get into some facts about this film. This film is around 1 hour and 42 minutes. Very great. It gets to its point, and this is something I'll comment at the end of my video. But one thing I really appreciate about the director and writer here, Michael Shanks, is that he knows what story he wants to tell, and he tells it in a concise and great manner. It kind of reminded me of Black Bag, just primarily in the type of execution that it goes with, in terms of just saying, hey, here's the story. We know exactly how the story is going to end. We're not going to meander on any unnecessary points. We're just going to give you boom, bap, bam. And it creates a very enjoyable experience for the audience, because then you get to trust the director and the writer, because it's like, I know that they know what's going on. So a little bit about Michael Shanks here. Michael Shanks has a YouTube channel called Tim Fed, which he has posted on for 15 years now. He got his start in filmmaking with YouTube, and more intensively after winning an online film festival where the prize was a job where he had to release fully new creative edited videos every 2 weeks. So this is what he did. He's Australian, by the way. So this was how he got into filmmaking. And you definitely see that 15 years of experience creating videos, writing stories, and editing them in this film. And I just really like that, because he's really honed his storytelling skill, and it's evident throughout this debut. He reinforces this idea that no one is an overnight success. He's been building his craft for 15 years before embarking on a feature film directorial debut. So yeah, there are those stories of people who just pick up the camera or just write their first script and they're automatically, winning Sundance and film festivals, etc., etc. But sometimes it really does take 15 years, and that is going to come out in the final product that you show to the general audience, and I definitely saw that in this film. So we have the cast here: Alison Brie, who I was introduced through Community, which I think a lot of people introduced to her through Community, but she's just been everywhere when it comes to television. I do think she has made some appearances in films, but I think her most well-known roles are television my God, my mouth is not working today. Television shows. And then you have, of course, Dave Franco, who has also, he's more in movies, less than TV shows, but he's also been quite a big star. And both of them are married. They're actually a really interesting couple. They have both decided that they don't want to have kids. Actually, it's not that interesting. Seth Rogen also said that about him and his partner. So this is kind of a common thing. I know the government probably hates that. But yeah, they're very charismatic couple that you could see their chemistry on screen, and I love that when you just know that these people are like, having sex in real life. So that definitely added a extra element to this film. And then there's one other character. Damon Herriman plays him. Damon Herriman is an Australian actor, so coming from the homeland of Michael Shanks, so we see why that comes together. People have been saying that Alison Brie outacted Dave Franco, and while I was initially resistant to that claim, I have to admit that it's obvious that Alison has more facial acting range than Dave. Both are great actors who use their real-life romance to enhance their on-screen chemistry, but Alison Brie just has that something special to her, and it's actually quite surprising that she hasn't had a bigger breakout role before this. But again, I think the average person who's watched television since the 2000s or in the 2010s knows her and is familiar with her voice and her face. I believe she was also a voice in BoJack Horseman, so she's just been everywhere. And Dave Franco, again, of course, coming off of the popularity of his brother, but independently has created his own really thriving and expansive career. So they're really great, but I will have to say, I admit Alison Brie has a little bit more oomph to her acting than Dave Franco, but I will also say direction wise, Dave Franco's character is supposed to be just this extremely distraught and mentally perturbed individual, so that might also contribute to why his character looks the way that he does. Okay, so the ideal audience is a fan of the movie The Substance who wants to see a similar body horror film where the symbolism is for codependent relationships. And even though this film is a body horror film, it's not as graphic as The Substance, so don't worry if you get skittish with grotesque imagery. The film tends to fade to black at the most grotesque moments. So I'm not going to spoil this film like I usually do, going plot by plot point, mainly because the film is quite linear in how it is expressed itself. But I'm just going to go through some poignant themes that I thought that this film was trying to explore. So the first thing on theme, THEME, just to be clear, the first theme I'm going to discuss is codependency and complacency. In an interview with Sundance, Shanks explains that the film was inspired by his own 15-year-long relationship with his partner. They had been together for nearly half of his life. Often these long-term relationships, especially those that began in high school or early adulthood, tend to be mired with what-ifs about the lives unlived due to a partnership that has defined their entire adulthood. In Together, Tim and Millie are in a mid-30s couples who have been together for 10 years. Despite the relationship occurring in a critical developmental stage of life, both of them appear to be stuck. Tim is still aspiring to be a professional musician without any concrete prospects, and Millie is an elementary school teacher. Millie appears to be more financially and emotionally stable, but she's also the one to initiate asking for a marriage. And there's this really hilarious scene where at this going away party, she goes on her knees and asks Tim to marry her, and she doesn't even have a ring or anything, and he's just so hesitant, and nobody in the crowd knows whether to clap or not because it takes a little too long to say, yeah, sure, I'll marry you. And also on top of that issue, there's the fact that they haven't had sex for several months. Now, the film has the couple in the audience wondering why they're still together. Millie appears to have an unhealthy attachment to Tim, to who Tim was at the beginning of their relationship, and Tim appears unable to detach for fear of professional, emotional, and financial failure. So we see this a lot where you'll see two people together and then somebody will say in the couple will say, oh, well, this is how they were at the beginning of our relationship. And it's like, that person I think has died. That person is no longer with us. And even though you definitely do have a sense of loyalty to that individual in terms of, yeah, we've been together for so long, we've kind of helped each other through these moments, and by breaking up with them, I am now going to I'm basically going to abandon them. The reality is that sometimes you do have to sort of be quote unquote selfish, but quite frankly, it's not you being selfish. It's also you hopefully getting them to the point where they're able to fix their life and actually live to their full potential. The codependency is harmful to both, as it's clear that there's an untapped potential within each of them that is being stymied by the relationship. A great metaphor highlighted in the film is the idea that we cannot tell how toxic something is while we're in that toxic dynamic. Like someone living with a rotting rat, it takes an outside observer to confirm the strength of the stench. Millie thinks that moving to a rural area will help their issues, but it only reinforces the codependency because now Tim, who doesn't have a driver's license, can't be apart from Millie without confirming her availability. Tim tries to fix her issues by going on a morning hike, but does the classic horror film trope of steering off the path and getting him and Millie stuck in a collapsed chapel. Due to the rain, the couple have to stay overnight while the weather improves. In the meantime, Tim determines that drinking from a stagnant pond is totally fine, and the couple's misadventures are set into motion. As somebody born and raised in South Florida, let me tell you, we have been fear-mongered about still water because there's a lot of stuff that's in there. Like I just remember, this is actually really sad. I just remember there was unfortunately a series of deaths from kids, and it was from them jumping into pools or into still water. So I was never allowed to do that because that's just a really scary way to die, just to swim innocently one day and then find out there's like a bacteria that's basically eating your brain and then killing you. Anyway, I will also say that the initial scene of this couple in the chapel was written very annoyingly. The couple kept on asking each other questions that clearly neither of them had the answer to, and I assume it was written this way to show how annoying couples can be with each other, but it really made me feel like I was in that couple. I was like, everyone needs to shut up right now. But just pointing it out because this was probably the only weakness I found in this entire movie was that one scene when they first were in the chapel, and there was just a lot of inane questions asked back and forth. So the second theme I want to discuss is mental health. Tim is a man who is trying to recover from a recent traumatic incident. He found his mother in bed with his dead father's corpse. The mother had a mental breakdown and did not want to confront her husband's death. We're not told what happens to the mother, but it's implied that she has been institutionalized. This adds a layer to the complexity of Tim's characterization. Millie holds tighter to a prior version of him because she sees his traumatic transformation as something out of his control and ultimately something that makes her breaking up with him feel cruel. For Tim, it means his concerns are dismissed as representations of a mental disorder as opposed to true depictions of reality. When he goes to a medical professional, the medical professional reminds him that mental illness is genetically linked, essentially implying that due to the way that his mother reacted to his father's death, clearly there's a mental illness in the family and that mental illness can be passed down to him. Millie dismisses Tim's theories about what's happening to them because she thinks that he's being delusional. Again, another symptom. Mental health discrimination is still real and can immensely affect a person's personal and professional life. Anything that deviates from the norm in any capacity gets reduced to a symptom, and that makes a mentally ill person feel dismissed. So this really sucks because a lot of personality, I do think, comes from people who kind of stray from the path. But there's a way that mental health help, and I know that CBT has often gotten a bad rap for this. CBT, it's kind of like act normal. Like, this is basically what they did. In fact, there's this really funny clip of Robert Eggers telling the child actors in The Witch to eat normally, and I feel like that's the same way that sometimes mental health can look like, where it's just like people are just telling you to act normal. So you're just like, fine, I get it. It's a performance. Act normal. So you act normal, but then when you quote unquote are acting normal, then nobody also wants to be around you because you're boring as hell. Because you can't deviate from what the script that you have in your head. Anyway, in Together, Tim has visions of finding his mother, and when the water they drink starts to impact his life, he struggles to find a solution that isn't reduced to a lapse in mental health. Tim feels like a chased man. His demons and the demons of the world are constantly coming after him. He is not free, and even when he tries to ask for help, the help is insufficient. It's clear throughout the film that Tim needs Millie more than Millie needs Tim, and that the dependence also points to a mental ailment within Millie because clearly she has some form of dependency as well on Tim. So I don't think Millie is, 100% mentally healthy, although I would argue that nobody truly is. But there's something to be said about how, yes, Tim has a very overt mental ailment here, something on a variation of like a very severe form of dissociation. But I would also say Millie has something going on with her as well, in the sense that she's not able to see her own self-worth, and because she isn't able to see her own self-worth, she's kind of constantly in this position to like take care of baby Tim. So relational addiction. The couple are also addicted to each other. While the water from the pond is what keeps them physically connected, the physical connection is just a direct translation of their psychological connection. Despite the pain that the relationship brings them, they stay in each other's presence. As we see their physical infusion in the film, we get the sense that the couple want to perform like a good couple, but are burdened by an underlying aversion to each other, yet they are still in each other's lives. This level of codependence is extremely toxic because it prevents the individuals in the couples from reaching their full potential. The curse that was put upon the couple is a representation of the toxic addiction that can sprout in long-term couples. Tim has an opportunity to get into the music industry again, but instead the curse forces him to be in Millie's presence. Presumably, Millie could find a more fulfilling career, although she does seem quite passionate about teaching, but sticks to her educational career because it ensures that she can take care of herself and Tim. Like any addiction, even though it's not obvious, their relationship does bring them down. And finally, I want to have a short conversation about feature film debuts. My last comment is going to be about, again, Michael Shanks and the fact that this is a feature film debut, which it was phenomenal. I don't know if I have expressed that enough, that I really like this film and highly recommend it. I just think it's really well put together. This year, I also had the pleasure of watching Opus, the feature film debut from Mark Anthony Green. I have come to the conclusion that sometimes the best route for any director or screenwriter debuting a film is to keep it simple. Together is a better film, not because it has a better premise, but because it is more focused and allows the director to put more energy into his strengths as opposed to spreading his attention in too many directions. Together is about one couple and their codependency and how it can be symbolized through a cursed underwater pond. Opus tried to make commentary on the music industry, but it included anyone remotely related to the music industry. It ended up being a convoluted mess that, while interesting on its surface, failed to execute because of the lack of focus and clear vision. If you ever have the opportunity to showcase your art to a mass audience, choose your simplest and most well-executed concept before you get to the more intricate execution. Anyway, I do recommend seeing Together and supporting this new filmmaker and supporting art in general. If you have any opportunity to support your local artists, please do so. A lot of people are out here struggling, and if you find some joy from film, from carpentry, from painting, hey, spread some love. I will be watching Weapons tomorrow, and I'm super excited. And yes, I'm better than everybody else who hasn't watched the film. And I'm so excited to do a more detailed review of Weapons. So until next time, this was Strategic Delusion. Have a great day.